introduction, as you've already guessed by now. We are redoing the studio completely. My husband and I are building a whole new setup, as many of you know. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen some sneak peeks of pictures here and there of it. And so we're getting near completion. We have about 3 or 4 weeks more to go before we're absolutely done, and then I can show you the new setup. But in the midst of building this thing, I have brought all of my makeup from the back bathroom up to the front of the house to be able to have it on displays in the background and whatnot. So I've been going through a lot of my makeup products and discovered that I have quite a few palettes. And many of you have asked to see that palette collection in the past, so I thought it would be a great video to share with you today while I'm going through my organization with all of these. Now, because there are so many, I'm not going to be able to talk in depth about each one, so I'll just give you a quick review of it, and at the end of the video I'll let you know which 5 I absolutely cannot live without, and if I lost every single one of them, which 5 I would be replacing immediately. I'm just grabbing a few to start with here. First palette comes from Urban Decay. You know what, we'll do this by brand. I'll do all the Urban Decay palettes first, since there are a lot. First one is the Oz palette. I have 2 Oz palettes actually. This is the Theodora, and then the other one, what was it? The Glinda palette. I never use these. In fact, I haven't picked them up in so long, I'm surprised to actually see them in this stack. And they're pretty great quality, but I don't like the packaging of them. I find them to be a little bit too bulky and hard to work with in terms of usage and whatnot. So they're not ones that I really reach for that often. 2 little palettes that I picked up from Urban Decay. These were on Hotlook, however the heck you want to say that word. This was the vegan palette. I swear I probably used this twice. And I didn't like it because the eyeshadows in here are not labeled correctly. Like if you look at the eyeshadow in here, Half Baked, it's a deep dark brown when we know that Half Baked is a golden amber shade like Amber Lights from MAC. So I feel like they mislabeled the eyeshadows in this palette, and so it makes me not want to use it. And the other small little palette that I picked up at the same time was the Skull palette. Once again, never really used this one. I mean, it is great for travel, but I'm not really fond of the color selection that's in this palette. And the next 2 tiny little palettes from Urban Decay are the Naked Basics 1 and Naked Basics 2. Many of you know how I feel about these. Don't like them. I will admit that I have been using the Naked 1 Basics palette when I travel for my blending shade because I have a big fear of breaking eyeshadows during travel, so keeping them compact in this little palette is perfect for me. So Walk of Shame would have to be my go-to eyeshadow in this palette because it is a dupe for Max Blanc type. But Naked Basics 2, I literally just bought that for YouTube and for the website. Other than that, I do not use it. Some of the bigger palettes from Urban Decay. Vice 2, you may remember this one from last year. Pretty great little palette, and I loved it when it came out. Still do love it, although I haven't used it in quite a while. Also, Vice 3 that came out this year. Really been liking this palette. I really enjoy all of the pinks and the purples that they've put into it this year. And between the 2 of them, they're exactly the same size, but Vice 3 is a little bit thinner by comparison, just in case you were curious. And Urban Decay's Smoked palette. Really enjoy this palette for the color selection that they offer in here. My most favorite eyeshadow in this palette is the one called Bar Lust, and that is one that I like to smother all over my eye and just wear it as a brown smoky eye. It's perfect for that. And I love the little zippered pouch of this palette. Great for travel. Definitely one that's not going to pop open on you in your suitcase. It's a great palette. Urban Decay's Mariposa palette. I do not like this one bit. Why? Because I can never open it. And I know I'm not the only one that has this problem. This is why I never use it. Ever! Okay, well screw that. I don't use it because I can't open it, number 1. The packaging is terrible, and the color selection in here isn't really that great either. So for me, it's a lose-lose palette. It's one that I really only bought for YouTube, for the website, whatnot. I would never use it in my personal time. And the Naked series from Urban Decay. Naked 1, Naked 2, Naked 3, Love, Love, Love. I don't even have that one flipped around right. There we go. Okay. Love all 3 of these palettes. Well, 2 out of 3. Naked 2 is one that I don't really reach for on a personal basis, and I don't pack it when I travel at all. I did when I first got it, and I did enjoy it for a little while, but It's not my go-to palette, really. I love Naked 1 because it's the best neutral palette ever. Put it in your suitcase, you're good to go. It's got a great amount of combinations that you can create. Naked 3, same thing. I love all the pinks and purples on this palette. Great one to have for a trip or just every day. Too Faced. I do have a few Too Faced palettes to talk about. First one, Natural at Night. Do not like this one at all. Very chunky glitter, very hard to work with. All of the colors seem to mold into one another. They get muddy after you wear it for a while. Not the best. Second one, Too Faced Romantic Eye. This one's a little bit better, but not by much. It is pretty good because it has a lot of really great pinks and purples in the palette, but I feel like the colors kind of fade after you wear them for a while. They're a little bit too powdery for my liking, so Pretty Rebel palette. This one gave me an infection, and I swear it was nothing that I did any differently, but I used it twice, and both times my eyes got really irritated by the eyeshadows in here. So I don't know if there's something in the formula that's different that Too Faced did, but every time I wore this, I did get a reaction on my eyes. So it's definitely not one that I reach for personally. I will say I love the colors in here, and I love the pigmentation and all that with this palette, but because of the fact that I can't wear it, I don't. Chocolate Bar palette. This is probably my most favorite Too Faced palette, and I'm really impressed, excuse me, by this one. You get a huge selection of colors in this palette, beautiful pigmentation, excellent payoff. They don't fade, they don't get muddy throughout the day. The only thing I do not like about this palette is that it smells like chocolate. Because personally, I'm not the type that enjoys scents in my makeup products. That's why I buy perfumes. So that's the only thing that turns me off about this palette. But I can get past that because it is really great quality. Let's talk about Stila! Stila. These are all of the In the series palettes. So I have In the Know, In the Moment, In the Garden, and In the Light. And I love all of the palettes from Stila. The eyeshadows are superb. Out of the 4 of these palettes, if I had to pick one only that I could keep, it would be In the Light, definitely, because this is the palette that I pack all the time when I travel. I cannot be without it. It has the most beautiful neutral shades in it, and they apply like a dream. And then my second favorite from Stila would have to be In the Garden, simply because you get a unique range of colors. I don't have any dupes for any of these in any of my other eyeshadows, and that's saying a lot. TheBalm Cosmetics. I have about 3 palettes from them. I'll start off with the Nude Tude palette. Not my favorite. This one had a lot of controversy in a past video that I did where I spoke out against it, and I still maintain my position no matter what. I didn't find this palette to be very pigmented. I found the colors to be muddy after you wore them throughout the day. They all just seem to mold into one another, and they don't come across on your eyes as they look in the palette, which is really disappointing. The next balm palette is the Meet Matte Nude, and I really like this palette. It's not a good one on its own, in my personal opinion. I mean, you can get some really great combinations out of this palette just using it by itself, but this palette is one of those that it's meant to be paired up with other eyeshadows in your collection. And they do give you a great range of matte shades in this palette. But again, pair them up with other eyeshadows to get the most use out of it. And then there is the BalmJovi Rockstar palette. Yes, this is so unique. Have you seen this one? They have the most awesome names for the eyeshadows in this palette. The unique thing about this palette that is not like any other palette that I have is that they give you 12 eyeshadows, 2 blushes, well, a blush and then a highlighter, and then 2 lipsticks on top of that. And the lipsticks double as cream blushes, so you can use them as lipsticks or on your cheeks, which is also really great. And I like that there's a lot of versatility here, which makes it really great for travel because you have everything right there at your fingertips. Totally random, but I also have the Anastasia Catwalk palette. And I picked this one up a long time ago. I don't think I ever used it. Actually, yeah, I never did really use it. And you know why? Because they didn't name the eyeshadows or number the eyeshadows in this palette, so it made it very confusing when you use it. And I'm sure it's very, you know what, that mirror is distorted. That's really weird. It's like a funhouse mirror. Whoa! Woo! So I can't really speak to its quality, but just based on the fact that the eyeshadows don't have any names or numbers to refer to them, it would have been a really confusing one for me to use, so that's why I never really used it. IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty Palette. If you saw my video on this one, you know I don't like it. It's just as bad as TheBalm's Nude Tude palette in my opinion. No pigmentation. The eyeshadows are very powdery, very chalky, very hard to work with, so I never ever pick this one up personally. I don't even know why I still have it, to be honest. Oh, I know why. So I can tell you how much it sucks. Alright, but in defense of the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette, there were a few of you who told me that it's really great for those who are beginning with eyeshadow because the colors are not so pigmented, so it makes it a lot easier to work with. And I could definitely see that about that palette. So if you are a beginner and you're just starting out, then that might be a really great palette for you to try. I personally did not like it. That's just me. Laura Mercier. These are their two holiday palettes from 2012 and 2013. They are the artist palettes, number 1 and number 2. I'm sorry, number 1 and number 2. And out of the both of these, my most favorite is the artist palette number 1 from 2012. I just feel like you get a much better mix of colors in here. The packaging on both of these palettes is excellent. They did a really great job on designing them. Small little random palettes for you that I have that I found. One is the NYX Wicked Dreams palette. Pretty good palette in terms of pigmentation and the amount of colors that you're given in this palette. I was pretty impressed by it when I did use it. However, it's not one that I reach for personally. I also have some sleek palettes, the iDivine ones. One is in the original and then the other one is in Storm. And these are really, really great. I need to start doing some more tutorials with the sleek palettes. The eyeshadows are very pigmented, very easy to work with. And I really enjoyed them when I did use these palettes. Kat Von D palettes. Which ones are these? Okay, this is the Ladybird and the Saint palette. Yeah. I didn't care for either of these. If I had to pick out of the two, which is the best in terms of the colors that you get, I would pick the Ladybird palette. I really did like the color range in that palette. The reason I did not like either of these palettes is because they gave me an allergic reaction, similar to the Too Faced Pretty Rebel palette. When I would get eyeshadow into my eyes during application, they would burn and sting so badly I had to stop for about 5 minutes each time and let that stinging stop before I went back to applying eyeshadow. Never experienced anything like that with any eyeshadow palette, so I was very surprised by that. And after I wear the eyeshadows for a while, that stinging, burning sensation starts to come back. And the only way to relieve it is to wash it off. Ow, ow, ow! And I haven't worn them since, to be honest with you, and I'm a little hesitant to try any new Kat Von D palettes for that very reason. And I know many of you have told me the same thing, that you've had the similar reactions to these palettes. So if you are considering any of the Kat Von D palettes, I highly recommend that you try them in the store, if at all possible, just to see if you have that same reaction. Save the best for last. LORAC. Yes, I have a few LORAC palettes here to share with you. First one is the Unzipped palette. I've used this one a few times. It is a great palette. I love the colors in here. They are super for a neutral everyday look. It's a great one for travel. And the LORAC Pro palettes, number 1 and number 2. Okay, out of these two, I really enjoyed them both, to be honest. I feel like if you do not like color and you're looking for something that's a little bit more neutral, easy to wear on an everyday basis, then the first one is going to suit you perfectly. But if you like color and you want to experiment and expand your horizons a little bit more, number 2 is a great one to try. But hey, get them both. They're both phenomenal. And the LORAC MegaPRO, which I just got the other day, as many of you know. I will be doing a video on it this week for you and letting you know my full thoughts, which I can't voice in this video because I have a lot to say, so I'm going to save it for that video. Now after all of that, whew, that was a lot. Which 5 would I go back and buy if I lost my entire collection of palettes? These 5 right here. I would definitely go back and get the Stila In the Light palette, Naked 1, Naked 3, Too Faced Chocolate Bar, yeah buddy, and the LORAC Pro number 2 palette. I hope you enjoyed this video today, and let me know what some of your favorite palettes are also, and which 5 you could never, ever be without. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you again on Wednesday.
Are you looking for new ways to wear your eyeshadows? Discover the only website online with pictures of combinations using the brands featured here and so many more. Head on over to myeyeshadowconsultant.com and get inspired today.